Hello everyone, my name is Jyoti Upadhyay and welcome to Rooted, a channel dedicated to providing quality guidance for history optional. Now, as we know, yesterday there was this history optional paper, and if you have analyzed the paper, you will realize that it was not possible to do the questions if you have not understood the topics, right? So in this channel, if you see the previous videos, we are covering each and every topic one by one, and today I'm going to start a series of solving the history optional paper 2025 one question a day, right? Now in this there are two approaches. One is I can do spoon feeding. I can just give you the question and I can give you the answer and you can just write it down, and that basically is of no use. Okay, so what I am going to do is I am going to explain you the question. I am going to give you the content of what to write in the answer, the name of the historians whom definitely you should mention in the answers, and also what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a model structure or format, but the writing has to be done by you, right? You know, as the saying goes, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime, right? So I am going to take the long-term solution, right? So today's question is question number 2C of paper 1 section A 2025, right? So first let us understand the question. Now the question says, the ideological challenge posed by Jainism and Buddhism was deeply rooted in the socio-economic transformations brought about by expansion of agrarian settlements in eastern India, right? So what is the focus? What does the question want to ask? Now, if you have studied the topic of Jainism and Buddhism, and do not worry if you have not studied, we are going to cover it, right? So if you have studied about Jainism and Buddhism, you will know that when we cover the topic, we also cover one thing in this topic, that is the background for the rise of Jainism and Buddhism, right? So that is what the question is asking. But then just knowing the background is not enough. Here the question gives you two terms. First is expansion of agrarian settlements, and also the other term is Eastern India. And the other thing is socio-economic transformation. So you have to write the question of 20 marks focusing on these three aspects mostly, right? So let us start. See, first and foremost, you have to understand the importance of Eastern India, and no need to take screenshot of whatever it is. You can go and visit my Telegram channel that goes by the same name, that is Rooted by Jyoti Upadhyay, and you will find the PDF of this and all the other videos, right? So no need to note down, just understand for now. See, Eastern India, as you know, is a very fertile piece of land, and the Aryans, what they did is they entered India from the northwest. Now gradually these Aryans were expanding from the northwest towards the eastern part of India. Now we are not going into the origin theory of the Aryans right now. We are going by the conventionally accepted ones. When we do about the Aryan topic, we are definitely going to cover about the origin of the Aryans, whether it was indigenous origin or whether the Aryans came to India from outside. For now, we are taking into this that Aryans came to India, entered India from the northwest, and gradually they were expanding towards eastern India. Now what happens is, when the Aryans were expanding towards eastern India, they encountered some non-Aryan cultures, right? Along with non-Aryan cultures, the land of eastern India was basically the Gangetic plains, and it was a very fertile land. As a result, what happened was that these Aryans in the later Vedic period, when they had come to know about how to do agriculture, and also there was discovery of iron by this time. So what happens is, there was iron plows, then there was basically fertile land. The Aryans had advanced knowledge of how to do agriculture. A combined effect of all of this was that that there were certain classes that started to grow in eastern part of India. Along with that, in eastern part of India, there were also certain rivers. Now these rivers acted as excellent channels to transport goods both in the country, as well as it gave them access to the sea, so that they could take the goods outside India to different other countries. So trade also became very easy. So what happened is, in the eastern part of India, there were two groups that came up. One is the agrarian group, the people who were who had their wealth came from agricultural expansion. They were known as Gahapatis, and the people who actually profited from trade, those people were known as Shettis. And what these people did was, these people also started building guilds or nigams. As a result, there were several socio-economic challenges that were happening in eastern part of India, and we are going to cover it in this topic itself. I'll give you this. But right now, understand what is the importance of Eastern India. And as I told you, there were also some non-Aryan cultures in Eastern India. So as a result of the presence of non-Aryan cultures, what is also happening is that there is much more freedom of expression to criticize the Aryan culture. See, the Aryan culture right now had become what? Had become dominated by the Brahmins. It was not exactly the Vedic culture that was there in the Rig Vedic period. It was now a culture that was dominated by casteism, and it was dominated by the supremacy of the Brahmanas. And there was a kind of discontent in the society. For example, these people, they had money, but they were not getting supreme respect in the society. Why? It was only because of their birth. Right? Even because the Aryans were expanding in eastern part of India, who were the persons who were fighting? It was the Kshatriyas. These Kshatriyas were fighting with the non-Aryan tribes. They were laying down their lives, but still they had to live under the domination. They had to live under the fear of the Brahmins. So as a result, what happens is even the Kshatriyas were not very pleased with this. So the rulers of eastern part of India, for example, we have Ajatsatru, we have Bimbisar, we have Ashoka. These started patronizing these Jainism and Buddhism. Right? So there is a kind of background story to it. And as a result of growth of trade, what also happens is there is urbanization, right? The society gradually moves from an agrarian society to a more kind of trade-based society. What is the main difference between an agricultural area and a kind of city life or an urban area? It is basically the economy, the subsistence of the economy. Is the economy based on agriculture? Then it will be a rural society. If the economy is more based on trade, then it will be a urban society, right? So these were certain kind of backgrounds that were happening. Understand one thing. Today, I can come and give ideologies. Here, what does the question say? The question says the ideological challenges posed by Jainism and Buddhism. That means what? These were certain ideologies, some different kind of ideologies were given by the Jains and the Buddhist scholars, which the people also adopted. And that's why it was a challenge. And it was a challenge for whom? It was a challenge for the prevailing Brahmanical culture that was existing at that point of time. The prevailing Brahmanical orthodoxy, that is the right word, right? So today, if I come and give you some lofty theories and all that, you will not buy it. But if, for example, you are suffering with some problem and then I try to sell you a medicine of that, you are going to buy that. That means what? There is a demand. So when there is a demand at that time, in the society, people were discontent with Brahmanical orthodoxy. At that time, there were these two prominent ideologies who kind of gave them an alternative. So people were looking for alternative at that point of time because of socio-economic challenges, and that's why they converted or they readily accepted Jainism and Buddhism. Right? I hope I am being clear. Now let us see what is expected. I hope you just try to understand things. Okay, if you understand things and read, whatever question comes from this topic, you will be able to do it. Right? Now moving on, what is expected in the answer? See, first an answer, it has to have what? It has to have an introduction, it has to have a body, and it has to have a conclusion. Now take it for this. Any introduction, what is a balanced introduction? First, there should be a general line, right? A general line. For example, here the question is about Jainism and Buddhism. So what you have to do is you have to write a general line regarding Jainism and Buddhism. For example, in this rough, and this is very rough, okay, I just wrote it down in a hurry. So what happens is it's just a kind of model introduction, rough model introduction, but the best introduction is going to be written by you when you understand and write. Just try to take it as a hint. So I have written a general line. For example, Jainism and Buddhism were most popular heterogeneous sects in the 6th century BC. It is important to let the examiner know that you know. So when I'm talking about Jainism and Buddhism and the socio-economic changes, I am talking about the time period that is 6th century BC. So I have to tell the examiner that I know that these things, they are happening in the 6th century BC. Next, I will move on to what the question is asking. The next line following this general line of the introduction should be what you have understood from the question. Just a brief crux, in 2 or 3 lines of your understanding to make the examiner know that you have understood the question and now you are going to discuss these points broadly in the body, right? So here what I have followed it is the primary reasons for their popularity were various changes in the political and socio-economic life of the Aryans in the 6th century BC, and these changes were mainly fostered, that is mainly brought about by the developments in agriculture and the expansion of Aryans in eastern India, right? And then also an important thing is to mention the source from where you know, or to mention the name of a historian related to this particular topic. So Jainism and Buddhism, when we cover in the subsequent videos, we are also going to see the important historians related to, who have given their opinion related to this. For example, we have Rabindranath Thapar, we have R.S. Sharma, we have D.D. Koshambi. So these are some of the prominent names that come frequently in books when we read about Jainism and Buddhism and the later Vedic period, right? Changes. So, and then so a balanced thing is you end with one historian's perspective, the introduction. That is, according to Rabindranath Thapar, the popularity of these religions was a response to the agrarian urban change in the Gangetic plains, right? Appropriate what she had said about this, जो कि हमारा टॉपिक के साथ मैच कर रहा है. Don't worry, you follow my videos. I will give you the every topic से related जो भी historians important है, I'm going to give you the views. In fact, इसके end में ही ना, I'm going to give you the opinion of R.S. Sharma also, D.D. Koshambi also. So just follow along. And also there are certain terms. हर topic का ना कुछ terms होता है that is demanded and you should write. For example, in this you have to mention name of these historians, or and then for example you have to mention about terms like Brahmanical orthodoxy. You have to mention terms. For example, heterogeneous sects. Heterogeneous sects क्या था? Heterogeneous sects were the Brahmanical जो ideologies था उसको challenge करते हुए जो sects आ रहे हैं. एक होता है हमारे पास reformist religions and another one is Protestant. एक है जो existing Brahmanical religion में जो the bad things that have come up. There will be some who will come up who will try to do away with these, push out these bad things and let the good things remain. And others who will come and say that no, this is bad, we are going to suggest an alternative, right? So these were Protestant heterogeneous sects, Jainism and Buddhism. Along with others at this period of time, for example, we had Ajivikas, we had Charvaks, we had Lokayatas. So we are going to do it subsequently. अभी क्या है, हम ये question discuss कर रहे हैं. The model introduction could have been like this. These were the basic things that should have been included. ठीक है? So mention the time period of Jainism and Buddhism. Then is what you have understood from the question and view of at least one historian. Right? Next, let us move to the body. Now, in the body, what is required? You have to write. हमारे question में क्या पूछा है? हमारे question में पूछा है about socio-economic changes. They have asked about this agrarian expansion, and they have asked about Eastern India. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हमें बस यही पॉइंट्स लिखना है. हमें क्या लिखना है? जो भी पॉइंट्स है बैकग्राउंड के, वी हैव टू राइट ऑल द पॉइंट्स, बट आवर इनिशियल पॉइंट्स और द इनिशियल बिगिनिंग शुड बी बेस्ड ऑन दीज थिंग्स, राइट? सो इसमें ईस्टर्न इंडिया का मैंने क्या बताया? अच्छा, तो इसमें मैंने क्या लिखा है? नोट दैट ऑल सोशियो इकोनॉमिक चेंजेस बट द फोकस एंड हाईलाइट द चेंजेस एज दैट वर अ रिजल्ट ऑफ एग्रेरियन डेवलपमेंट्स, पॉलिटिकल एक्सपेंशन ऑफ आर्यंस टू ईस्टर्न इंडिया. ठीक है, अब क्या है? लेट अस कम टू द बॉडी, कि हमारे कुछ पॉइंट्स जो हमारे बॉडी में होने चाहिए थे. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, फर्स्ट थिंग दैट वी हैव टू राइट इज अबाउट डिस्कवरी ऑफ आयरन. एग्रीकल्चर से रिलेटेड सबसे पहले क्या था? वाई वी आर हैविंग एग्रीकल्चरल सरप्लस? इट्स नॉट जस्ट द फर्टाइल सॉइल ऑफ ईस्टर्न इंडिया, इट्स ऑल्सो बिकॉज ऑफ द टेक्निक्स कि आर्यंस जब इंडिया में आए थे वो हंटिंग गैदरिंग कर रहे थे. ठीक है, हरप्पन सिविलाइजेशन था. हरप्पन सिविलाइजेशन वॉज अ वेरी एडवांस्ड अर्बन सिविलाइजेशन. उसके बाद क्या है? वी हैड द आर्यंस हु हैड कम टू इंडिया. They were what? The Rigvedic, initially the Aryans who had come, they were mostly a kind of tribal society and their main subsistence was hunting gathering. They did not basically know how to do agriculture. They gradually learned it and then what happened is they started mastering it. And when they started mastering it, it coincided with the discovery of iron, that is around 1000 BC. Vedic period का time period क्या है? Circa, that is approximately 1500 BC से लेकर के 500 BC तक. एंड यहाँ पे अप्रॉक्सीमेटली अराउंड 1000 BC में देयर वाज डिस्कवरी ऑफ आयरन. ठीक, तो ये जो डिस्कवरी ऑफ आयरन हो रहा है 1000 BC में, इससे क्या हो रहा है कि आयरन प्लाउज आ रहा है. प्लाउज एज इन हल. ठीक है, आयरन प्लाउज आ रहा है एंड नाउ डीप प्लाविंग इज पॉसिबल. अब डीप प्लाविंग से क्या होता है ना? डीप प्लाविंग से द चांसेस ऑफ क्रॉप फेलियर बेसिकली रिड्यूसेस. ठीक है, तो इस तरीके से डीप प्लाविंग हो रहा है. सो व्हाट इज नाउ हैपनिंग इज देयर इज अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ फैक्टर्स. वी हैव फर्टाइल गैंजेटिक प्लेन्स, वी हैव आयरन प्लाउज of and as a result we have surplus production. As a result of surplus production, you have to write that there was the emergence of new social classes, that is Gahapatis and Shettis, जो कि already मैंने बताया, and their prosperity was based on agrarian surplus and trade. Why? Because of the trade routes through the rivers. Now, Eastern India was not only fertile plains but also rivers that connected to the sea. ये point मैंने बता दिया, that you have to mention. Then is these classes, they had money, but still they did not get supreme respect in the society only because of their birth, right? That was the thing that happened. So they were looked down by the Brahmanas, so they were discontent with the existing Vedic religion and they looked for alternatives. And when they were actively looking for alternatives, the alternatives were provided by Buddhist and Jain ideologies, right? Next is these socio-economic changes plus political changes like expansion to Eastern India gave rise to large kingdoms. ठीक है, आर्यंस जब क्या है ना, मैंने क्या बोला था, दे एंटर्ड इंडिया इन द एज ट्राइब्स एंड एज दे वर एक्सपैंडिंग टू ईस्टर्न इंडिया, दे वर फाइटिंग. And they were fighting not just with the non-Aryan tribes or non-Aryan cultured people, they were also fighting among themselves. For example, in the Rig Veda, we have the 10th mandala of the Rig Veda, ठीक है? No, 7th mandala of the Rig Veda. In that, we have the mention of Battle of 10 Kings. मतलब कि 10 राजा जो हैं, वो आपस में एक कन्फेडरेसी बना करके एक दूसरे के संग लड़ रहे हैं, ठीक है? It was the Bharat tribe on one side, and on the other side, there was a confederacy of kings. So we see from this story that they were fighting not just with the non-Aryan tribes, they were also fighting with among themselves. As a result, what is happening? क्या होता है ना कि छोटे वाले को बड़ा वाला हरा देगा, for example. So now this bigger one becomes even more bigger. So this king now becomes even more powerful king. इस तरीके से gradually क्या हो रहा है ना कि tribal chiefs were gradually moving on to become kings. From kings they were gradually moving on to become monarchs. तो इस तरीके से क्या हो रहा है, जब हम वैदिक पीरियड करेंगे, we are going to see about these changes. They are not happening over a small period of time. It's a gradual change, ठीक है? So we are going to cover it, but for now understand that there were also these political developments that were happening, ठीक है? And I told you about the Kshatriya points कि ये लोग कौन लड़ रहे हैं, ये लोग Kshatriyas लड़ रहे हैं, and they are also discontent by the supremacy of the Brahmanas and the Brahmanical orthodoxy. Now, as these things together, they also led to urbanization, areas where the main, ये point already मैंने समझा दिया. Then is the ideologies of the existing Vedic religion focused more on yagnas and sacrifices. Very important कि ये जो yagnas and sacrifices है ना, कि ब्राह्मण्स क्या करते थे कि पहले इनको अगर कोई भी प्रॉब्लम आप बताओ, what they used to say is कि it is because the solution is that you do a havan, you do a yagya. Now what is happening कि initially in the Rig Vedic period, these yagnas and all, they were quite simple. Even the mantras were simple and the people could connect to that. But gradually what is happening that, and because the Brahmanical dominance is increasing, the mantras also are becoming very complicated. They want, to keep it kind of exclusively only the Brahmins could perform that. Okay? Next what is happening is that these yagnas are becoming much more elaborate, and because these yagnas are becoming much more elaborate, they are also becoming very costly. So now these people who are earning money by their hard work, by their toil, they don't want to give considerable amount of money to the Brahmins just because they are performing these yagnas. So they wanted to look for something simple, something that they could more connect to. In fact, there were also these peasants. I think I have mentioned about I have already mentioned about the point of guilds. I have also already mentioned about, okay, I'll come back to this point. So what happened was, yes, there were these peasants. In these yagnas, what they used to do is, they used to do a lot of animal sacrifices. Now, as a result of animal sacrifices, for example, if I am a peasant, okay, and I have 2 oxen, right? I need these 2 oxen to draw the plows. Now, if I have to, something happens and I have to organize a yagna, and I'm required to give one of my oxens, for sacrifice. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to like that because I need this oxen. Right? If I'm having 10, I don't have a problem to give one. But if I'm having only 2, then I will definitely, not do that yagna. And what will happen is I will keep on feeling that because I did not do that yagna, that's why this bad thing is still continuing, right? So even the peasants are dissatisfied. Definitely the people who are at the lower strata of the society, they also are very dissatisfied. And now what happens is, in a Brahmanical order, especially the Shudras, they are not treated very well, right? So these Shudras, when they are not treated very well, and their position is also improving, because these Shudras are now being used as manual labor in the fields, in the agricultural fields. Also, when the trade is expanding, who is a Shudra basically? Acha. There is a confusion among many people. Many people feel Shudra is a part of Varna system or not. Okay? Shudras are not untouchables. Untouchables are different. They are outside the Varna system. Shudras are a part of the Varna system. They are the people who used to do manual labor. Okay? So that is their occupation. For example, Brahmins, there was more about knowledge, acquiring knowledge, acquiring knowledge, reading the Vedas, transmitting the Vedas knowledge, and so on. Next, what happened is, next came the Kshatriyas. Their main thing was warriors, warriors, valor, fighting in the battles. This was the primary occupation of this group. Next, we had the Vaishyas, whose main occupation was basically trade. And then came the Shudras. So Shudras used to provide manual labor. So when we have expansion of agriculture, when we have trade growing, at that point of time, these manual labor is required, and the Shudras are doing that. So Shudras are also getting money in return, right? So even their status, their economic status is improving, and they are also not satisfied by the Brahmanical orthodoxy. So there was a kind of ground that was created because of these two pillars, the two pillars of expansion of agriculture and expansion of Aryans to Eastern India. They were the pillars, and the development of iron, they were the pillars around which, and also the ideologies of, maybe ideologies of equality, ideologies of simplicity that was given by Jainism and Buddhism. They were the main pillars around which this entire change happened. Okay. And the acceptance among the people regarding this Brahmanical religion happened. It's a very crude setup, okay? So sometimes the camera falls and so on. So anyways, so the classes started forming guilds or nigams to protect their interests. They did not like the existing order, and they had to part with their wealth and all. I think this point is self-explanatory. Then Eastern India, not only fertile, this point also I have explained. Next is continuous fights between Aryans and non-Aryans, even I have explained this point. Other socio-economic changes, existing Brahmanical forms of worship, yagnas economically burdensome, priest mantras became complicated, changes in philosophical thought. I have already explained these points. Yes, so these are the things that you have to mention in the body, right? Next, what you have to do is, next is about conclusion. So what we write in the conclusion is that, this is a 20 marks question, okay? So you have enough scope to write. Next is, when you write the conclusion should again be a gist of what you have written in the body, right? So introduction mein, it has to give the examiner an idea that you have understood the question. Conclusion has to have a gist of what you have written, along with your own perspective. Take a little bit you have to write about your own perspective. So I have not written a model conclusion here. Here what I have done is, I have mentioned about 2 points that should be there in your conclusion. So based on what I told you, you write your own conclusion and include these points, right? So what are some points? For example, in a gist, Jainism and Buddhism were not just spiritual revolts. That is, it was not just ideological revolt, but it was the result of socially embedded ideological challenges. That is, ideological challenges, that is the crisis that was brought about by the Brahmanical orthodoxy that had created the bedrock upon which the ideologies of Jainism and Buddhism got acceptance, right? Next is the rise. So the rise must be understood in context of expansion, urbanization, assertion of new social classes in Eastern India. Okay? हो गया. And yes, as I told you, I will give you the views of some historians that you should know related to this topic. Right, like just don't try to mug up them, but just try to understand their idea in which they talk about. I'll try to put up a video on historiography. Historiography is basically what? Historiography basically is kind of the way of history writing. Historiography has certain schools. Schools, for example, we have nationalist school, we have Cambridge school, we have subaltern school, we have Marxist school. The different, and all the historians, they are a part of some or the other school. We have made them a part of some or the other school. Now, what is the basis on which we, for example, I say that Romila Thapar is a Marxist historian. What is the basis? The basis is she looks at any topic primarily from the angle of class, primarily from the angle of the economic perspective, the conflicting classes and so on. So that is how we differentiate them. So if you understand Romila Thapar in this way, so you will also be able to easily understand the opinions she has. Okay, so just subscribe to this channel. Okay, you are going to get a mine of information. Anyways, so for now, R.S. Sharma, he says he links the rise of heterogeneous sects to material transformations and class tensions between the ruling elites and the social groups, right? D.D. Koshambi, he sees Buddhism as an ideology of the ruling Vaishya class. According to A.L. Basham, he stressed on spiritual aspect. अब अगर क्वेश्चन को घुमा के पूछा जाता है, अगर अभी क्या है कि अभी सोशो इकोनॉमिक चेंजेस आर द प्राइमरी फोकस, उसी में अगर आइडियोलॉजिकल चेंजेस को भी थोड़ा फोकस में डाल के वो पूछते हैं, ठीक है, तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं, वी कैन यूज इंस्टेड ऑफ यूजिंग रोमिला थापर, वी कैन कोट A.L. Basham over there, राइट? सो दैट्स व्हाई इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट टू नो देयर पर्सपेक्टिव्स. एंड ऑल्सो रोमिला थापर का मैंने ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर दिया. सो इनके ओपिनियंस ज़रूरी नहीं है कि हम इंट्रोडक्शन में ही इंक्लूड करें. व्हेन वी आर राइटिंग द बॉडी ऑल्सो, जहाँ भी इनका ओपिनियन सूट कर सकता है, वी आर गोइंग टू राइट देयर नेम्स. वी आर रीडिंग ऑप्शनल, राइट? सो व्हेन यू रीड ऑप्शनल, यू हैव टू थिंक लाइक अ स्टूडेंट ऑफ हिस्ट्री. And regarding me, my name is Jyoti Upadhyay. As I told you, I am a master's in history and I have been a faculty for a considerable number of years in a reputed coaching institute in Eastern India. So you are in right hands, okay? Don't think I'm going to misguide. It's not just another random YouTube channel. It's a serious business. Do subscribe to this channel and stay rooted. Thank you.